So we're going to go ahead and get started. As you may have noticed, we are recording this just for any students who couldn't make it. So otherwise it can be pretty casual, just ignore the camera. Before I introduce Kathleen, or after I introduce Kathleen, we thought it'd be helpful to go through the room. If you just tell her a little bit about yourself, name, class year, and maybe if there's an issue or two you're most passionate about, just gives her an idea a little bit about your background so she knows who's in the room. For those of you who don't know, Kathleen is the executive director of the Skadden Foundation. She's also a former Skadden Fellow herself. After graduating from University of Chicago in 2010, she became a Skadden Fellow at the Sargent Shriver Center and was there for 2 years, then clerked, so she can talk a little bit about that early experience, and has spent the last, 7 years? I think about 7 years in a variety of additional positions with, I think, government and consulting, and then now at the Skadden Foundation. So she definitely identifies as a civil rights lawyer and has been a great resource for students. And I'm so glad that she was able to make time today to speak to some of you about your interest, probably applying for a Skadden next year or the following year. So without further ado, maybe I'll start having you introduce yourself. The baby's quiet. Name, class year, and a passion or two that would help her understand your background.
My name is Allison, and I'm a 3L. And before law school, I was an accountant, so I'm interested in kind of more corporate-based social entrepreneurship projects. I'm clerking next year on the 7th Circuit, so I'd be applying for fellowships. This is Rosie.
I'm Sinclair. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in lots of things, but right now, affordable housing and eviction defense, and I'll be working for legal aid office.
Hey, I'm Phil Wilkinson, originally from New Mexico. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in local government law and civil rights litigation as well.
I'm Sarah. I'm also a 2L. I'm really interested in sexual violence and gender discrimination broadly.
I'm Reed. I'm 2L, and I'm interested, like pretty similar to Sinclair actually, but like housing, homelessness, poverty law.
I'm Rachel. I'm a 2L. I mostly focus on international human rights and global migration, so relevant to Skadden would be if I decide to go into immigration direct services.
I'm Lauren. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in immigration and the rights of people caught up in the criminal justice system.
I'm Jason. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in community ownership and workplace democracy.
I'm Ben. I'm a 3L. My work has been in class action litigation, mostly disability rights and prisoners' rights work. And next year I'll be clerking on the Middle District of Alabama.
I'm Emily. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in poverty and inequality and sort of the intersection between law and policy and organizing.
I'm Connor. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in housing law and then queer and trans litigation, queer and trans rights litigation, especially as it intersects with kind of youth and homelessness and HIV law and policy.
Thank you all for sharing. I'm going to pass out business cards. I do hope that you really, really call. I will say that now. Some of you will act like you don't believe me. Call about anything. It's really important to me that this is a completely transparent process. So we've put really extensive FAQs on our website. Basically, everything I'm going to say today is there. Don't feel like you have to take notes. Also, if you have questions that come up that aren't answered there or here today, like you should call. It is my job to help you get a fellowship, not to get in the way of getting one. So there will be a part of this process where I judge you, but that process isn't today. It's not over the summer. It's when you turn in your application. So I hope you feel completely welcome to call. So we just did a quick round of intros and what people are interested in.
My name's Amanda. I'm a 2L. I'm interested in the environment and environmental law generally.
Great. Good. Okay. So just as a brief overview, I'll talk generally about the fellowship. I'll talk about how to think about a project-based proposal for us, or for someone else as well. I'll talk a little bit about the application itself and the application process, and then about the fellowship. And that's my plan for today. So you should dive in anytime with questions. I'll also try to stop. I haven't given this talk since last year, so I brought flashcards. Not fly all this way to forget an important subject matter. So, like I said, there's information on the website. We will also have open call-ins in maybe July. We did last year as well. They'll basically be like this again. But at that point, you may well actually have identified a host, and some of the information I tell you today will actually be a whole lot more relevant then. So, feel welcome to join those as well. So the Skadden Fellowship pays for 2 years of your salary to work on a poverty law issue of your choice. We'll dig into each of these words later, but we fund projects that address the civil legal needs of people in poverty in the United States. We get about 200 applications a year. We fund 28 fellows a year, so at any given time we've selected 28, and then there's 56 already working. There's an alumni network of about 800 more. About 90% of people stay in public interest. It is our goal to launch a public interest career for you. So before you apply to us on September 14th, 2020, if you're applying this year, you secure for yourself a host organization, and you, with your host, develop a project proposal. So we'll talk through that a little bit. The project proposal, I think, can be a little bit daunting for students because it really puts you in the driver's seat in a way that's different than applying to staff attorney positions. And so I think it's great that we're here talking early. It'll give you some things to chew on now, and you can make decisions in the spring and the summer. So you're really lucky here at Stanford because you have Anna, and you have Shafak, and you have Diane Chin, who's herself a former fellow. So you have a lot of wisdom just here in the building or buildings. You also have Jory Steele as a former fellow on faculty. More than 65 of the 877 Skaddens are Stanford alums. So you have a big sort of built-in network. You should plan, though, when you cook up your own proposal to reach out to former fellows who work in the subject matter that you're interested in. And don't constrain yourself to just Shriver. Skadden starts with an S. Shriver, where I work, starts with an S, and so does Stanford. This is don't constrain yourself to just Stanford alums. If you find other fellows who have expertise in the geography where you want to work, the client population you want to serve, you should be reaching out to them. It'll hone your insights into the client work that you want to do. You can find those folks on your own through internships or in the Bay Area. You can also find them by talking to me about the particular thing you're interested in, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with relevant folks. They are my 877 experts, and they should be yours as well. They're really generous, positive folks. Okay, so your project proposal should be your dream job. It really, really should. I will tell you this now, and I believe it to be true. This is a strategy-proof process. The Skadden Fellowships are for clients. You tell us about a client need that is compelling to you and how you are going to address it, and we will believe you. So really, really, really dig into what changes you want to make in the world and what you can deliver in 2 years. So we talked about those broad categories. Let's break down a little bit what the project has to be. So it has to be civil in nature. We don't have any criminal law. It has to be legal in nature. You all are doing a lot to secure these JDs, and you may end up in careers where you don't use your law degree every day. But we only fund fellowship proposals where a primary component of the project requires a JD. You may also have components like community education, organizing, lobbying, and policy advocacy that don't require a JD, but the primary thrust of your project needs to be legal. The projects need to be for people living in poverty, and we do not have a strict cutoff. It's not 100% of FPL, it's not 125% like many host organizations you work for will have their own cutoffs. But it's not enough to have chosen an issue that disproportionately affects poor folks. That would be almost everything, and we only get 28 of these. There are about 60 people in the U.S. who live below 125% of the federal poverty line, and I get 28 grants. So we really will want your project to be targeted. If you have questions about that, that's a very good reason to call. And then the last thing is the projects have to be based in the U.S. for clients in the U.S. The U.S. includes American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian communities and the U.S. territories. Although I will concede right now we've never actually funded a project in some of those places. If that's a place you know well and want to work, let's talk. So those are the requirements on you. Any questions about just the requirements components? Okay. So the flip side is the requirements on your host organization. Extremely limited. They must have at least 2 attorneys doing full-time civil legal advocacy. So if there is one attorney and they have an ED who has many responsibilities, including travel and fundraising, that's not enough supervision for you. So 2 attorneys who are doing full-time civil legal advocacy. And they must be a standalone 501c3. They cannot be a project of a law school. It can't be a government entity, even if it's doing civil legal work. Okay? Again, if you have a question, or a potential host has questions, those are reasons to reach out. Okay, so those are requirements. The fellowships are for the clients. So every part of our evaluation is oriented around that. That is the Foundation's philanthropic mission. So it is super great to get this Skadden Fellowship. I highly recommend it. But when you think about your project design, think a lot about how you serve your clients, and then that'll guide you to a really good proposal. So So a couple considerations, probably one of the most important early decisions you'll be making is your host organization. So just, I can't tell you where to work, but I can give you some tips. You should look for an organization that's doing the very best legal work on the issue that you want to work on. That your first years out of law school or out of a clerkship are a real apprenticeship period, and you want to learn from people who are doing this. You should also look for a host organization that has a track record of supervising them. A lot of organizations, it's not their day in, day out work bringing on a new attorney, and you will require a great deal of supervision to do this work for your client. And the last thing I'd say is any host organization is going to be very excited to have a Stanford Law grad. So you need to find a place that is more than very excited. You want to find a place that's really all in on the project that you two cook up together. So make sure that they're committed to the work, as committed to the work as you are. You want to marry some things that you bring, your passion, the issues you want to work on, the client community that you want to serve, with the insights of the host organization that's serving clients every day. So host organizations know what clients need. They also know what their core institutional commitments and their supervisory capabilities look like. So you want to really bring those together. They also probably know more than anyone else what is practical in terms of what you should bite off in serving clients. So they're very, very helpful when you found an organization that you respect and having an iterative process where you narrow down to a reasonable project proposal. Okay, well, that's a project proposal. Do you all have questions about thinking of the project proposal component? I know that can be hard. Okay? Yes, please, thank you.
Yeah. This is super helpful, but I'm still, I guess, just trying to think through, like, when it comes to, like, we are creating, or if we have proposal ideas, or, like, an organization, if, you know, we're with an organization that has their own ideas, and, like, I guess just, like, how, yeah, like, how much are we able to create things that either, like, you know, the organization's never done before, or, like, if the organization, like, has something very specific in mind, right?
Right.
But, like, are there ways that, like, we can kind of, yeah, like, how do we navigate, I guess, those things?
Totally.
Yeah.
I bet your career advisors are better at this part than I am. But probably something between the two. There are fellowships, not ours, where you need to propose something novel. Your organization can't be doing it, they wouldn't have been doing it otherwise, and it's best if no one is doing it. It's not our theory of change. Our theory of change is not that legal services have just, like, lacked good ideas for the last 4 years. We really just want you to come into the places that are doing the work at the very highest level. But your passion should absolutely be part of it. There are very few times in our career as civil legal aid attorneys where we get to craft our own project, and you should take that part seriously as well. So we get an evaluation from every fellow at the end, and I will tell you I've been really struck by the fellows who pushed the hardest to get an organization to expand their work outside of their core competencies tend to be the ones at highest risk of having less effective supervision. Because when you actually get there and everyone has their cases and the institutional needs are really, really high, it can be very hard to maintain a project that's sort of out in Siberia. It's hard for you to serve your clients. It's hard for you to be like a good neighbor. So we actually advise that you find a place that is all on whatever it is you want to do. So a little bit of both should be there. Thank you for that question. Okay? Okay. Yes?
I mean, could you have, like, I'm just sort of curious how far that line goes. Like, could you have, like, your proposal be a staff attorney at this legal aid society, you know? Like, is that, you know what I mean? Like, how literal can you be with, like, that's all into the work I want to do, and they're doing it?
Basically, yes. That probably isn't a compelling way of presenting your proposal.
Yeah.
I think normally when we talk to strapped legal aid attorneys and we say, what would you do with another me? That can be a really useful conversation, because sometimes organizations will say, you know, we're doing a lot with consumer debt, but we're seeing this consumer fraud thing coming up, and we're not able to focus on it the way we want. We have the skill set. You know, I did these 20 years ago, and I would love if we could do it, but we just need more time. Sometimes folks do the work that a legal aid organization does, but they do it in a different place. We have a lot of medical legal partnerships where we're actually coming into a medical provider, and the fellow is doing, like, housing law, education stuff, all the stuff that legal aid officers know how to do, but in a place that's more accessible to clients. We also sometimes have fellows with language competencies or who are members of cultural groups who are able to extend the work through their own identity and their own expertise. So the work might look very similar, but the organization is really excited about deepening its partnership with a particular community. So I think there are ways to do work that is deeper and more focused, that lends itself to a first year, but that also are in the skill set of the organization. Okay? Oh, you just touched your glasses, so now you have to ask a question.
Absolutely.
Later. I read this book that she said when you want people to participate, it's called The Art of Gathering, that what you do is you say everyone has to ask a question, and whoever asks a question last is going to have to ask their question in song. So get your questions in early. Right, no one wants to hear that, so I appreciate it. That's like the mean way of practice. I could also take off my glasses to guarantee that I could no longer see you all, and then you'd be able to ask whatever you want. But what I really mean is please ask questions. So there are some areas that the foundation has never funded. Those fall into two categories. One is because no one has ever asked us. There's a blurb about all 877 folks we funded on our website. If you don't see a project that looks like yours, that is a very good reason to call. There are also a set of areas that have been outside of the foundation's guidelines. And like we do every year, we're talking about them internally right now. So there may be some small changes. I'll give you some gists of what they are. I'm not over-promising about change. If there are some things you're interested in, so those would be reasons to join those group calls later in the year when we've been able to move our conversations internally. We have some funding restrictions around immigration, but we do fund affirmative humanitarian immigration, only a few visas, T visas, SIJS, and DAWA, and we do tons of work for immigrants, housing and worker rights and education rights. So there's a lot to do in the immigration space. We haven't funded deportation defense, and we haven't funded work for people who are detained. That second one applies in the criminal justice context too. We also have restrictions around what we fund in the reproductive rights and environmental contexts. But particularly in environmental law, we just don't fund issue-based projects generally. Voting rights can be a poverty issue, or it can be a partisan issue. And we're going to fund felon disenfranchisement in the South, and we're not going to fund X state doesn't allow college IDs, not a poverty issue. So there are a lot of issues like that. You might think civil liberties, not a poverty issue. That's usually true. But AI and big data being used to separate families in the child welfare context is a poverty issue, and we're funding it in the incoming class. So we don't fund issues, we fund projects for poor clients. And if there's any uncertainty around what you want to do, those are good reasons to talk. Okay, that was what we do and don't fund. Do we have questions about that? And I'm sorry I don't have more details. I really wanted to have more details before I got on a 6-hour flight. Okay, we're going to talk about the application. Yes, please.
Sorry, you just said, I think that's you don't fund work on behalf of detained folks in the immigration context, and I think you said in the criminal justice context.
And in the criminal legal context, right.
Okay.
So we haven't funded projects for folks who are in jail and prison.
Gotcha.
Again, like, there are civil legal needs there. I'm totally aware of them. I'm a civil rights attorney. That's something we're talking about, and there may or may not be any alteration.
Okay.
I will let you know. Okay. I still had a baby in law school, so I'm a big fan of babies in law school. So I'm going to talk to you about the application. It is very straightforward. It'll be up on our website soon, probably in March. It'll have two main components. One is a fillable PDF form where you type in some basic biographical stuff, and 3 essays. Diane could tell you that when she and I applied, the essays were 300 words. It's a gift to you all. They are now 400 words each, but that number is firm, and now, because it's a fillable PDF, I will be able to stop reading at 400 words. So 400 words each. The first essay where you describe the project, you may use bullet points just to get the information. You okay? Feel free to grab water, it's about whatever. Okay. And then there'll be a set of information that you scan in the packet. So your transcript. We know your weird age system. So. Your resume. For us, your resume can be more than 1 page. When you're a fellow for life, so we want to know as much about you and the work you've done on behalf of poor people, as far back as that goes. You'll also attach a commitment letter from your host organization, where they can add some context about why this work matters, how it fits with the other work they do, their track record of supervising young attorneys and serving the client population you've identified. They also do not have a word limit, so that is a helpful place to put some more information for us. You'll have 2 letters of recommendation. One will be from someone here, a faculty member, either doctrinal or clinical, and one will be from someone who supervised your legal work. If they want to email those separately, that's fine as well. And then there'll be a certification. It's a short one from you all. And again, a small change we anticipate this year. We expect there to be a short certification by your host organization as well. That'll just lay out some of our expectations for the fellowship. So that is the application. You're going to have 2 PDF packets. You're going to email them to us on September 14th or early, and that's it. The application itself is as straightforward as we can make it. Questions about the application? Yes.
Yes, I don't have to sing it. The letter from someone who supervised your legal work, could that be someone at the host organization?
It totally can. If they do, then they need to write 2. Sometimes there are even 2 different people in the host organization. I have also noticed that if you have interned at the host organization, they tend to do a very good job of singing your praises in the commitment letter. So if you would like yet another person to sing your praises about legal supervision, that's fine too. So you have options. So there are 2 things you could consider adding to your application packet, and really those are the only 2 things. If you are working on something that we haven't done a lot of before, and you think we would be educated by a brief newspaper article about the particular client need that you identified, that's fine. If you're going to be working on housing in the Bay Area, like, I'm good. We've only funded a few folks in New Mexico. I was just there and had dinner with the fellows in New Mexico, right? Like, if home is somewhere we haven't funded a lot, or the issue is an emergent one, feel free to slot something short in. Also, if you have more of a community lawyering, movement lawyering perspective, if you expect to be working directly in solidarity with organizations, they may write us a coalition letter. So it should be very brief. It tells how you're going to work together, why the work matters. That's all. Do not pad your applications. I will read them all, every word of them, in 10 days, so I don't want them to be long. Anything else on the application? Okay, so what happens after September 14th? So I read them all. Susan has read them all for 33 years, and I've read them with her for the last 2. We can't interview everyone that applies, so we'll cut to about 100 folks. If you want an interview, my colleague Kathy Kihike will call and let you know when and where it is. If you are here, it'll be at our at the firm's Palo Alto office. I'm sorry, I now know how hard it is to get here from everywhere but Stanford, but for you all, it's very easy. If you're clerking, we will fly you to the closest of DC, Boston, New York, Chicago, Palo Alto, or LA. The interviews occur over 3 weeks, first at the beginning of February. Half an hour after the last interview ends, the advisory committee will convene again. I'll talk about them a little bit in a minute, and we'll cut to 56 finalists. If you're a finalist, we'll let you know. If you are, I'll write a cover letter about what I found so compelling about the work that you want to do, attach it to your application materials, and share with our board of selection trustees. They come to New York on November 12th this year. They vote, we don't, but I will be there and will advocate and let people know so compelling about the work you want to do. At the end of that, there's 28 fellows, so we call them whatever and the next step. So I'll tell you just a little bit about the interview, and we will also make some interview information available for folks who get them. Last year we pushed out a very lame little video of me. We'll figure something out this year. They are not depositions, interrogations, or cross-examinations. They are just conversations. They're half an hour. It flies by. I will be in all of them. If you're in New York, Susan may be there as well, and there'll be a member of our advisory committee. So these are partners of the firm who are all very involved in pro bono, very involved in the foundation, and also often on the board of legal services organizations as well. And we will have read everything that you wrote. So that'll be a jumping off point for like a very straightforward conversation about how you came to choose what it is you propose to us. We'll have questions about your clients. We'll have questions about the legal work you expect to do for them. And we'll have questions about you from your CV and from your essays. Questions about how you got to where you are, where you see yourself in the future. So they are not tricky. We've never asked someone a question in an interview that they were unable to answer. You also know more about the substantive law you want to do than I do, probably, almost certainly. And so it's really an opportunity for you to teach us more about your project and the clients you're going to serve. So that's the interview. Questions? Really? I only have like one flashcard left, so you're gonna have to ask them too.
I have one little question.
Great.
The interview. Like, I mean, how many people sit in on this interview?
Like on my side or on your side?
On yours. I don't know if there's more people on my side, but I love for like support side.
Right, no, there's one applicant. Awkwardly in the waiting room, sometimes there's like 2 or 3. And sometimes you know them, for better or for worse. Actually, here you almost certainly do. That only happens here in Boston. It's very weird. And on my side, it's me, it's a partner at the law firm, and once in a while Susan. So there will be at most 3 of us. Yes. Mostly, yeah. And they're really quick. I remember when I started this job, I was like, hey Susan, so the interviews are like 12 minutes long, right? She was like, no. They feel fast. So you will prep with these guys to put your best foot forward and let us know why it is that the work that you've identified is so compelling. because everybody's going to be doing good work, all 100, and there are way more folks who are going to be great public interest lawyers than we get to be a part of funding. Okay? I have some tips for you, but I was hoping that you would ask them and that I could answer. Okay. Yes?
How much of what you're thinking about at the interview level and beyond is, I guess at any level, at any stage, is about how compelling the work is and the project is versus how accomplished the person is?
It's a very good question. So, like the public interest lawyers who work here, like I have a big heart and basically find all 100 projects that we interview compelling. In the trifecta of the work, the host organization and the person, I would say the host organization is with us for 2 years, the person is with us forever. So we probably care a little bit more about you and how you see the work. Also because just like our clients deserve the lawyer who really, really wants to do the work and really has the skill set to do it well. So I would say anyone can propose a project. Like I think we all think kids need SIJS status, right? But like not all of us are well suited to do that work. I in particular am not well suited to do that work. So we're really looking for fit across all 3 of those. And I think you have to think about those kind of depending on your project. So obviously, if you're working with clients that don't speak English, we have a relatively extensive question from the application about your language abilities. If you're going to be working with a translator, we need to know. If you're natively fluent versus professionally proficient, like we're going to get a fair bit of information about them. Of course, if you're working with immigrants in 6 languages, like one of the fellows is in the English class, like she speaks 2 of those with fluency, and I was very pleased. And she uses a translator a lot. And she talked to us very frankly about her prior experience using a translator. If you have proposed a big impact project, that's great work. Not every host organization is well suited to host a federal litigation. So we're really looking at how well crafted this is to do the work that you've outlined. The work will always be compelling, but how well people have thought through the work is very important. Thank you. Yes.
Just to follow up on language skills, are you like, how heavily should we think about like, well, do you have the language skills to just talk to your clients directly, or most of your clients directly, all of your clients directly, any of your clients directly, like, versus like, well, you're accomplished with using those services that you would need.
Right.
Some of those conversations, just like as we're conceiving of like who we're going to serve.
Yes,
well,
totally.
How do you think about that?
I think it's pretty holistic. I think it also intersects with your host organization and the client populations they're serving and your expertise in the substantive law, right? There's a lot going on there. It is one of the things that matters a lot, but so is expertise in the work, for sure. That would require language is very helpful. Yes?
You did mention transcripts and your familiarity with the HP system.
Yes.
How much does that matter?
Grades matter a fair bit. What I'm definitely looking for is people who are going to be excellent public interest attorneys for very vulnerable clients on day 1. And that's hard. Lots of folks will be great public interest attorneys, but not ready to craft a proposal. That's okay. Your grades are one of the ways that I see that you're excellent about what you're doing here. So are the other things on your resume, like your clinics and your engagement with this community, the work you've done before law school, right? There's a lot in that. Grades are definitely part of it. And I would say especially they're a compelling part of it when I only have you on paper. When I meet you in person, I get to have some more flexibility, but I only get to meet about half the folks that I want. Okay. All right, more questions. We talked a little bit about impact. Every different kind of project is going to have its own attendant questions, and I think this is one of the things that these guys can be really helpful. Anna and Diana and Jeff are really thoughtful about public interest law. So if you're doing an impact project, there are questions around what you can get done in 2 years, right? There are questions about how much you understand the client's needs today because you won't be with them every day the way a direct services project will. If you have a movement lawyering project, the questions are really different. They're how deep are your host organization's relationships today with social change organizations? You're not going to make those and do the movement work in 2 years. So we really think about those questions both with your skill set and with the host organization you selected. We probably have a higher level of expectation if you're doing impact work about what you bring to the table in terms of your knowledge of the needs of those clients already, because you won't get to be client-led in quite the same way. And that doesn't mean that we'll probably fund an impact project every year, even a handful, but we do ask different questions for every kind of project. Let's see. We don't come into this process with a foreordained set of categories. We're not going to be doing 2 LGBTQ projects, and we're not going to be doing 3 in the South, 4 in the Northwest, right? And we also don't really think about our clients' needs in categories. Susan's definition of poverty is that each thing compounds the next, right? I've never had a client who's come to me with a legal issue tied up in a bow. Like, we're all just human and we have complex lives and needs. So we don't have those categories, and you don't have to have them either. I would say I really do believe this to be strategy proof. So if you look on our 877 and you see that we've never funded anyone in Montana, you should not either take from that you need to drop everything, find a project in Montana, and then like you've got this figured out. You also shouldn't take from it that we would never fund a project in Montana if we found the right person. So really, really, really tell us what your passion is, and we're ready to hear you out on it. Questions? It's not just Montana, there's a few other states. You should absolutely be in touch with current and former fellows with more expertise in these issues. Same with your host organizations, right? Have a lot of expertise as well. We're happy to put you in touch with folks to the extent they're in our network. More questions? Can I keep having a look at my book? More questions? We talked a little bit about novelness. Your projects for us don't have to be novel. We also won't ask you questions about the sustainability of your project. We won't feel like your host organization is committed to funding you when you leave. Other organizations do it, and that's fine. I think you'll know a lot more about what kind of public interest lawyer you want to be in 3 years at the end of your fellowship than you do sitting here with me today. So that's why it's absolutely not a part of our selection criteria. Yes?
I'd just be curious to hear if clerking matters. Do people tend to do it before or after?
Yeah, so both. And I think there's been, it seems to me like some shifting in the clerkship market later. So I think we had 3 fellows leave to clerk at the end of their fellowships this year. I clerked after my fellowship. I think folks who come in on a clerkship have a slight structural advantage that we get to see their full transcript. And you get to do cool stuff 3 a year. So I think there's some small advantage there, but I don't think it's a reason to reorganize earlier. I think clerkships are very helpful for serving for clients, and they're helpful whenever they come. Yes?
What about the range of sizes and types of host organizations you normally see? So would you say that the majority are sort of, the 2-lawyer range, or there are some that actually go up to, larger nonprofits that actually have, tens, dozens of attorneys working with the fellows?
It is a good question. They will come in all varieties. So we have someone going to Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, which has literally hundreds of attorneys. Big state. We do also have a person going to a place that has 2 civil attorneys this year. So there's a full range. There are organizations that are very savvy about our process that have just done it loads of times. You'll see them repeated over and over on our website. I don't think that you should take that that's like a better place for you to partner with. It does mean that they'll know the process well, and you won't have to learn as much from other places. But if you're with an organization that we haven't met before, that's totally fine. There are thousands of organizations, and we just haven't gotten to some yet. There are also great ones formed every year, often with really experienced folks. So if they feel like they need information, we have a section on the website for them, and they can also call. I can also cold call. I don't get to be here.
You know, the singing cold call.
Right. I don't want me to sing. They're like, turn the video off. What other questions? Yes?
Is remote supervision okay? If like a host organization has a lot of attorneys working remotely, and maybe you would have like one supervising attorney in the physical location, but one who lives in a different state and supervises it remotely.
Okay, so the end is better. We don't, yeah. I'm going to try not to be too fuddy-duddy about this. Yeah, having one person physically with you sounds very, very important to me. How many more people you have with you, I have some flexibility around. The reason that we have this firm requirement around 2 is because, like, God forbid, it is a year between when we fund you and you start. Like, people's lives change, someone can get hit by a bus, someone can quit. And we need to make sure that you're going to get out of the supervision for your clients, even with a fair bit of the life-changing that happens. So if you're really at that bleeding bottom edge, I would just say think really carefully about if you'll be able to serve the clients if some of life's unpredictability happens. Once in a great while, there'll be a project that has some combination of supervisory functions, either one person remotely and one person in a small underserved community that this person's joining. Once even more rarely, where most of the project is supervised by the host organization and an ancillary component is supervised by a sister organization and coalition. That's got to be for really compelling reasons, and normally it would be because we've been funding a project in a place with very limited services. So this year we had a project which we didn't fund. He was great, that's not why. Where the only housing attorney in a county works for an LSC restricted organization. So he's going to work for a non-LSC restricted organization that could do affirmative housing litigation for undocumented folks. He wanted to add an eviction component, and just that component was going to be supervised with this agreement with the LSC organization. That's about as low as we're willing to go on the supervisory frame, but it would have allowed us to do a project in a place where the need was really significant. So I think those things intersect. There are probably other fellowship programs that are more willing to be really on the bleeding edge of you making up your own thing. It's not a thing we're comfortable with. Yes?
So if you've narrowed it down to 2 host organizations and spoken with individuals, is it something we could come to you and talk through like applicability and like which might be a better fit, or is that like you want us to come in with like exactly?
Yes, I won't tell you what I think is better.
Oh yeah, no, just like in terms of the criteria.
Yeah, and we can talk through what you think they're good at supervising and what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And once you've cooked up an idea with one place, you can absolutely run it by me. People often call over the summer. They do not take notes. You do not have to call. But one is a way of preventing you accidentally applying on something we won't fund, which would be very sad. And 2, if I have any questions or concerns, you probably want to know them for free before you apply. So sometimes people have a little bit over-ambitious projects. They're like 16 components that I'm going to, that's probably too much. Again, with the frame of what's best for the client. What do they need? How are you going to help them? Yes? Oh, you want
no, I was holding my hair, sorry. So, a little too
do you have a question anyway? Any other questions? You answered them all. That seems improbable. Do you have questions? Look at that. Feel free to call. Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you for your commitment to public interest.